let's go to the blog. So here we have our blog
Woohoo.
about downloading and installing R. Over
Thank
to you.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so for those who don't know where to find this, it is right on our the Afredac R for Fun Club page that Frank just he posted it recently, so it should be near the top. Um, but this kind of goes step by step. So for this, you need to download two things actually. So you need to download something called R and something called RStudio. Um, Basically, R, we'll explain in a bit. R is needed for RStudio. So you can think of R as like the engine, RStudio is the car. They have to work together in order to be able to be driven. So the first thing we recommend is downloading R itself. So you download the engine. There's a website you can go to that's listed right there. And there's a really handy click. You can just click on download R. By default, it'll download the latest version of R, but just in case you have an older computer, there are options to, if you scroll down, you can find older versions of R. But for the most part, you should be able to download the latest version and your computer should be okay with it. I think that's that
Just,
for downloading R.
just a funny thing people should know.
Yeah,
Each version of R is given a funny name.
that is true.
So it just goes very well with our fan club. So the current version actually is called the Puppy Cup. And then another version is called the previous, just previous version was Angel Food Cake. So I will allow you, go take your time when you're looking for your version to remember which name it has been called. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Darcy.
No, thank you. That's a really good point. Yeah, they've given some funny names. And the cool thing is you can see the dates. The release dates are very, very close to each other, so it looks like R is being updated very often, but you don't have to worry about updating it on your end really. Like if you download the latest version, you can use that version for a few years. Like it's not gonna, most packages and things that in R are designed to be used a few years, so it's not like you'll have to keep downloading new versions of it. Um, but yeah, that's, you can download R over there. If you scroll down, you can select over here. Once you click download R, it'll ask you to select something called a CRAN mirror page. This is fancy language. Basically, you can choose where you're downloading R for or R from. So you can, on the left side of the web page, you'll see countries. So normally you can click what country you're from if it's listed. If it's not, there's this zero cloud thing at the top, and you just click that and download it. Um, that basically just takes you to a country specific page to download, and the zero cloud one can be downloaded anywhere.
Ashna,
And
let's say
yeah.
this affects the operation of R. Like if you download to a CRAN mirror that's closer to you, apparently
Mhm.
your R performance will be faster compared to if you downloaded like right now, if I'm in East
All right.
Africa and I download from Australia. Is this really a
Yeah.
fact?
I imagine it like, because I downloaded mine in Canada, but like now I'm in the UK and it's been, I mean, I think it maybe makes a difference when you're doing like more complex or larger operations. Um,
Mm,
but so far, I mean, I haven't noticed a big difference yet.
yeah, me too,
Yeah.
completely. Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, then you pick your depending on what kind of computer you have, it'll let you pick for Mac, for PC, for Linux, whichever one you have. Just make sure you click the correct link to download R. So here, this shows you for Mac OS, for example, how to download it. And again, you want to try to pick the latest versions, but it usually tells you, like it'll say on this page for older Intel Macs, there's a separate one. And then for newer ones, you can click the top. So whatever is newest will always be kind of at the top of the page. So once you've done that, you've downloaded R successfully. Now you can download RStudio. Similarly, you can visit the website linked here. And again, you'll be given options for different versions of RStudio. Just download the latest one, unless, again, if your machine is super old and you want to download an older one, you can just scroll down the web page and find a version that works for you. But yeah, there we go. It'll say even this website will tell you to install R first. So, but you've already done that, you can install RStudio.
And
just make sure.
yeah,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, one amazing thing I found was I think these software, these websites now have kind of like a operating system recognition functionality. So for
They do,
example,
yes.
yeah, when I went to the website directly, it said install for what am I using? I'm using a normal PC, a Windows PC, and
Yeah.
so most likely what will pop up here, it won't be our Studio Desktop for Windows. It might be even for your Mac if you're using the Mac operating system.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. Like it automatically detects, which is awesome. So you don't have to worry about finding a link and trying to figure out exactly what to download. It'll tell you automatically what to download. But yeah, that's that for installing R and RStudio. Like I said, it's if you do not have these two installed yet, we do recommend installing it before the next session, but really use the like R for Fun Club forum as a place to ask questions. Like we understand that it's not totally a straightforward installation process. So if you run into any issues, do let us know on there, and then we can kind of help you troubleshoot. But hopefully it goes okay. It might take a little while depending on your internet connection. Um, but yeah, that's that. We can, I guess, move to the slides. Thank you. Oh yeah, here we are. This is our little presentation for today. Full of, I think that's the only animation of the presentation. I gave up after one slide. But this is the beginner session. Quick disclaimer, anything that we say in this session is taken from something called the FER Handbook, which is an amazing online resource. It's free to use. As far as I know, it's in English, French, and a couple, oh yeah, it says over there, Spanish, Vietnamese, Japanese, Turkish. I know they're translating into a few other languages as well. So it's a great resource that kind of teaches you step by step how to learn R. We've kind of picked different chapters from this to include, but we do encourage you to check out the handbook if you want more detail. Next slide, please. Amazing. So now that we've gone through R and RStudio, we should take a chance to explain what R and RStudio are and why on earth you had to download two things and not just one. So R itself is a programming language. So for anyone who has programmed before, you may have used R. There's other things, C, Python, Java. All of these are just languages that computers use. Um, and then RStudio is something called a graphical user interface, which is a fancy word. It's just a way of saying that you use RStudio to actually write code. So some people use the car analogy where R is the engine, RStudio is the car. You can also think of it this way, where R itself is the writing and RStudio is the notebook that you write in. So however you want to conceptualize it, basically you need both of those things. And R itself is very, very powerful for statistical analysis and epidemiology. And the great thing is it's free to use. So because it's free to use, it means like there's all sorts of resources online to help you. And it's why we could create a course, something like this. There's a lot of other computer programming languages that require paid tutorials and that sort of thing. So we're very lucky that because R and RStudio is free, there's a lot of help out there. But they're very powerful in that you can use R to create dashboards. I know Frank has created a really, really cool COVID dashboard with R. You can automate outbreak and situational analysis reports, which I know that a few of you are coming from healthcare institutions, and I imagine you have um, regular reporting that you do on, I don't know, hospital bed use, rates of infection in your institution, that sort of thing. So R can actually automate those, which is really, really cool. And lastly, R is used very often in publications. So you can create quality tables and figures with it. And all of this sounds complicated and far away, but we're hoping to use this course to kind of eventually get to topics like this so that you can use it in your own work. Next slide, please. So here, actually, we can skip over this. We've gone over installation. This is walking through the RStudio environment. So here, when you first download R and RStudio, oh, I see there's a question in the chat. There are participants who are having trouble joining the meeting, it seems.
I'll have a look.
Yeah, we can. I mean, if they aren't able to join, it is being recorded, so they can um watch the recording. Worst case, if they're not able to join. But yeah, this is what when you open up RStudio, this is what it'll look like. It looks a little bit crazy at first, but you can think of it as it's made up of four main sections. There's something called the source pane, which is usually on the top left. This is where your actual document lives. So you can think of this like a Word document or something. So you do your writing in here. You could save it like how you'd save a Word document. And that's where your work happens. Underneath that is something called the console pane. So the console pane, R itself, remember we said R is the engine. So that console is R itself. So anything you write in the source pane, the calculations will be undertaken in the console pane. And when we do a demonstration, you'll be able to see what we mean by this. And then on the top right is something called an environment pane. So in the next couple of sessions, we'll be creating, when we do operations, we sometimes create things like variables. We have data that we work with that we import into R. So any of these variables, any of this data will live in the environment pane. And that's something that sounds confusing right now, but in practice, you'll be able to see what it's used for. And lastly, there's what I call the everything else pane, but it's really the files, packages, and plots pane. Here you can see there's like several tabs on it: files, plots, packages, help, viewer, presentation. So over here, it kind of opens up like the file directory on your computers. You can use it to find different things. Suppose you create a graph in R, your graph will pop up in the viewer here. And then you can also, it's got a really handy help tab that you could use to find more information. And yeah, as Frank said, for anyone having issues, you can hopefully just click on the Zoom link. The worst case, this is being recorded, so we can, folks who've missed it can join after. So now I have a question for the audience. If anyone would like to jump in and answer, what is the difference between typing code in the console pane versus the source pane? Or briefly, what is the difference between these two? If you don't want to unmute, you can also type it in the chat. Let's see if anyone is unmuted.
So Ashna, I'm going to
Yeah.
be a beginner here.
Yeah.
So I know there is one where if you type your code, it will give you the answer, but
Yeah.
it doesn't sort of store your code.
Mhm.
And then there's another one, it leaves your script there and you can refer to it. Am I moving to the right direction?
Yes, you are. So over here, if you go back to the previous slide, you can see exactly as you said, the difference is in the source pane when you write, it works like a Word document. So anything you write over there will be saved. You can write code, you can write text, whatever you write. However, the console pane is more like an engine. So you can use it for calculations and stuff, but you can't save it really itself. It won't work like a document. It's more of a calculator. So anything you run kind of gets calculated and runs through the console pane. But then the source pane is where your actual document lives. And again, these things, the differences between these two sound silly, but in practice, you'll kind of be able to see what the difference is. Next slide, please. Now we're going to take a moment just to talk about what functions and packages are. Next slide. So functions are at the core of using R. Functions are basically how you perform tasks and operations in R. It's very, very simple. Even like a plus or minus sign is it's a function. Anything that performs some sort of operation is a function. And the way it works is it's like a machine that receives inputs. does something with those inputs and produces an output. So you can see over here, the function that is being used is called sqrt. It takes the square root of something. Your input appears in brackets, 49, and then when you run that, your output is 7. So a function can be very simple like that in that it only asks for one input. The functions often ask for several inputs, and often you call those inputs arguments, and they're usually located within the parentheses of the function separated by commas. Why we're telling you this is that it's common lingo that's often used in our tutorials and different help things. So it's good to know kind of what a function means, what an argument means, and we'll see in practice how these are used. Next slide, please. So then we move on to something called packages. So for folks who have programming experience already, you may be familiar with the term package, but essentially a package is like a box that contains functions. So when you install R, already R will contain a whole bunch of built-in packages called base packages, which contain functions that perform very common tasks. But many R users like to create special functions, which are verified by the R community, and you can download for your own use. So once a package is downloaded, it's stored in something called a library, and then you can access the functions it contains in your current R session by loading the package. So a way to think about this is if R is your personal library, so when you download a package, your library gains a new book of functions. And each time you want to use a function in whatever one of those books, you have to borrow or load that book from the library. So your library is actually a folder on your computer. And within that folder, it contains kind of a folder for each package. And within the folder for each package, you have a list of functions that can be used. So that's kind of a way to conceptualize what that is. Next slide, please.
And Ashna, I just wanted to add the other way I understand packages. I've seen there are times it's almost like what packages do. It's almost like for those people who cook, who like cooking food. The other way you can think of it is like when you, for example, you're preparing our famous African food is fufu. In Swahili we call it ugali. In order to prepare ugali, you need to have your flour, you need to have your water, you need to have your, I don't know, the other stuff, whatever you put to get it cooked at the end of the day. So in order to get it there, you need functions. So let's say flour, water, appropriate temperature, and all of that, those are different functions. So the end product will be your fufu. But what packages do is you find somebody has already packaged, it's like a full pack that you buy that is ready-made. So here you don't need to do anything. You just need to have a package of making fufu. And when you press it, at the end of the day, you get your fufu. So you don't have to bother with how much flour to put in, how much water, how much temperature should you boil it up to, how much you have to do a little bit of rotating the spoon to get it in the right. So the good thing is with our community, majority of the functions that we use for performing analysis are already known. So what the community has done is, if for somebody who cooked the fufu before, they create a recipe for you and they create a package. So next time when you come as a new R user, you don't have to start looking for everything to be able to run the command. You just go to the library and say, I needed a fufu package. You get to the package, you put in your library. Next time you want to cook fufu, you just use the fufu package. If you want to create like a model, or you want to create like a logistic regression, you don't have to write the whole equation y equals to mx plus b plus c. You don't need to do that. You just tell the package which is in your library, and you choose the type of regression model you want to run, whether it's linear or logistic, and they say, do this for me. and it purges out to the end product. And that's what the package does for you. So you have your function, you have your packages, and you have your library. So this is the other way you can think of it.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Yeah, exactly. It's a way for to save time even. Exactly as you said, if somebody has done it before, it's likely that they've made a nice little package for exactly what you want to do. So instead of coding from scratch, you can just take advantage of somebody else's package like that and download it. That's a great comparison. I'm gonna use that one. Um, exactly as we said, if you want to make Fufu and you would like to download the Fufu package, you have to do something called installing packages. So most often our users download package from something called CRAN. This is just an online open source network of packages. It's like the biggest library in the world you can download things from. So then there's different ways of installing and downloading packages into R. Traditionally, it's a very simple function called install.packages. And then whatever you'd like to download from the big library, you just put it in quotations, and that allows you to install a single package. Um, so of note, you need to install a package only once. And then once you've installed it, you've taken it from online, this giant library, and you've taken it and put it into your personal library. So that step only needs to happen once. But then every time you want to use it, you need to load it every time. So every time you open R, you need to load that package you've downloaded. And typically the R function to load a package for use after it's been installed is just called library. So here, the difference here is that you don't need to put your package name in quotations now, because R knows that, oh, this is something that exists in my library. I'll just put its name in, and then I'll load it for use. So again, that's two steps. You have to install it, and you only need to install something once. But then every time you want to use that package or use functions from that package, you need to load it into your R session every time. And again, all of this will make sense, I think, maybe next session once you start doing some examples. This is just to get you used to some of the wording that's used in R. Next slide, please. There are other ways, and we're telling you this now because just in case folks access other resources so you don't get confused, there are other ways to install packages. So the way we saw in the previous slide is you install it once with install.packages, and then you load it with library. There's also a quick way of using functions within packages without having to load them. For example, if you want to just use one function, I just need the flower, or I just need like one thing from the package, and you use a double colon for that. So you can load packages and use them at the same time. So here we're looking at the read Excel package. I'm using that double colon to access one specific function from it called read_xlsx. And then I'm applying it to one of my data sets. So that's a way to use a function from a package without separately loading that package. You can also check whether a package is installed and or loaded. You can view it in the packages pane in RStudio. So when you open up RStudio, remember that files, folders, everything else pane at the bottom right. There's a very handy packages tab, and it'll actually show you your library over here. So if you click on packages, you'll have a list of your library books basically. So you can see what packages you have in your R, and if they've been loaded for use in your session, you'll see a little check mark beside it. It's a good way to just check if you have something loaded or not. And then there we go. There are also other non-traditional ways to install and load packages.
So what you can do is just quickly you type pacman and use this double colon and then pload any of the packages you want. So you can see the difference between this version of loading the package where you need to put the quotation mark. In pacman, you don't need to add the quotation mark. So what pacman will do, it will check your library to see if these packages exist. And if they don't exist, then it will go directly to load all these packages for you. So this is another way of loading packages um, using Pacman. So what Ashna was going through at first, you need to install packages. So, and installing packages, you need install.package, and you type the package you want to install with quotation marks. And in order to work on this package, you need to load it to the library. So this is using library, and in the brackets you put the package name without the quotation mark. While if you want to now install the specific packages without, you want to load packages without using the library, you can use the name of the package. This is double colon, and then you type with quotation mark. And the other alternative is using Pacman double colon payload, and then you add the packages. So this is the quickest way of loading and installing the packages. Here's the question, and I'd like if any one of you who is already using her to respond. What if I want more information about a function? So here's the question. What if I want more information about a function? So let's say you are a beginner, like majority of us here, and you're working on your R, and you want to know, let's say, a function of to do a sum to add two numbers. How do you learn more about it? So there is an easy way R has put that forward. I'll go to the next slide. Oh, I see. Good. So Ashna really simplified this. So first, you can, for example, if you want to import a file, let's say you've been working on patient cases and you want to analyze it. How do you import that file into RStudio? Because you don't know the function, let's say today here, or you want to create a histogram, a bar chart, or a line graph. Even if you want to compose a song, actually, R has different functions that can support with this. So the quickest way is actually Googling. So you can quickly Google, just like how you're wondering, how do I import a CSV file into RStudio? And if you do such a simple query, you get your code right away on Google, because as we said before, R has a lot of a good community of data science, and a lot of these codes already exist. Ashna is asking, did she disappear? So what I would like to encourage you is, if you have any question of how to run anything in R, you can use the discussion group in this R for Fun club, or you can even just post that question on Google, and it can quickly give you the response of the function to use. Here we will be taking you through different common functions, and we'll start from importing data to querying the different variables, and also being able to run the specific analytics on those data sets. So this part was for demonstrating, how to do basic function and calculations in RStudio. I'll stop sharing my screen so I can turn on my R page. Is actually Googling. So you can quickly Google, just like how you're wondering, how do I import a CSV file into RStudio? And if you do such a simple query, you get your code right away on Google, because as we said before, R has a lot of a good community of data science, and a lot of this code already exists. Ashna is asking, did she disappear? So what I would like to encourage you is, if you have any question of how to run anything in R, you can use the discussion group in this R for Fun club, or you can even just post that question on Google, and it can quickly give you the response of the function to use. Here we will be taking you through different common functions, and we'll start from importing data to querying the different variables, and also being able to run the specific analytics on those data sets. So this part was for demonstrating, it's for demonstrating how to do basic function and calculations in RStudio. I'll stop sharing my screen so I can turn on my R.
Ah, there we go. Okay. So you see Frank has opened up our studio over here, and just like the screenshot, we have our source pane on the top left. This is the actual document. So maybe I could ask Frank to start typing in the document to show how you could use it as, maybe just type 1+1 in there, and we'll show kind of how it appears in the document versus in the console.
Yes,
So over
I've
here,
typed
so Frank,
1+1.
oh, amazing. Thank you. So now you can see the first change you see is now just on top of where Frank was typing. It says untitled 1. So now it's encouraging you, because it's a document, it'll encourage you to save it, like how you'd save a Word document. So you can go ahead and save it if you'd like. And you can name it however you'd like. But
I can name it. So you see here, I can just save as, I can just say my R file. This is, I didn't have a file for beginner. I can say RFC beginner, and just how should we call this?
Just like example or anything.
Example 1.
Yeah, nice. And now you can see it's called example1.r. So similarly, how if you had a Word document, it'd be example1.doc. Our scripts are saved as .r, and you'll be able to find it depending on where Frank saved it in a folder of his. So next time he wants to open it up, he can just open it up like how you'd open a Word document, and you'd see 1+1 there. Now we'll actually see how the console works. So if Frank runs the 1+1, you'll see that it doesn't print out number 2 in the source pane. Over here, you can either type directly into the console.
I forgot to run the code.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So here, so he ran it. Yeah, no, all good, all good. So when he ran it, you can see it printed out. So the 2 didn't print out in your Word document. The 2 actually printed out in the console. And this is actually good. So you can see Frank's console's on the right. You can customize your R to have the console wherever, basically. But the idea here is that, so all the calculations happen within the engine or the console. So even though he had written 1+1 in his source pane in the document, when the code was actually executed, the answer was typed in the console over here. And the console itself, you can use it as a calculator. So Frank could have typed 1+1 in the console itself, and that would have been fine as well. And it prints out the exact same answer. But the difference here is that how to use the console like a calculator, you can't really save that as a document. The advantage of typing in the source pane and typing within your example1.r script is that if you save it and reopen it, all of your work will still be there, which is really good for if you're doing some more complex analysis over there. So that kind of shows the difference between the two. Notably, you don't just have to write code in your scripts. In the next session, we'll kind of give a demonstration of what good coding practice is, and one of the good coding practices is commenting. So just putting text in your script over here. So you can see Frank has started writing RFC beginner over here. So he's creating. Oh, I'll let him create.
My keyboard is giving me. I haven't actually set it. Let me see. I don't know, UK keyboard now. I'll say I'll begin on club full of fun.
Yeah. So here, Frank is creating something. So anytime you have a little arrow over there, it's the arrows are used to create something. So he created something called RFC beginner, and to create that he used some text called club full of fun. So you can see when he runs this, nothing prints out in the console. And why nothing prints out is because the thing that he's creating is stored in something called the environment. There we go. And when he prints out or when he runs RFC beginner, now it'll print out the answer club full of fun. So now you can see how the environment is used because Frank created something. We just call this a variable or an object. Now that thing that he created gets stored in the environment. So it's club full of fun. But suppose you don't want to, if you don't want to create anything and you just want to comment to explain what you created, you can also add text to your script. So you just put a little number sign, and then anything that follows a number sign is plain text. So we encourage this as part of a good coding practice for just explaining what you're doing. So anything that comes after the number sign is just for recording notes, and those don't actually, if you run that, nothing will happen. It's just a little text. So that kind of shows the difference between the source pane, the console pane, what happens in the environment. And then lastly, that little everything else pane, you can see quite handily it's on the packages tab right now. So you can see all of the packages that Frank's got installed. Most of these actually came with R, so you don't have to worry about installing all of these separately. When you download R and RStudio, most of these come with it. But you can see this is Frank's library. So anytime he wants to load a package for use, there'll be a little check mark beside it. Whereas a lot of these don't have a check mark because they exist in his library, but he hasn't pulled them in for use quite yet. So you can see just how, and this is like, this may look like a big library, but your library will also grow to this size. It's very common to have packages for all sorts of things. The same way they say there's an app for everything, there's really a package for everything as well. So whatever you want to do in R, chances are there's a package for it. And I realize it's also already at 1:03. I wonder, should we wrap up?
Yes, I think we should.
Yeah.
I don't remember what else was remaining on the slides.
I think might be a good place to stop actually, because
Yeah.
what happens
Okay.
next is we start talking about different document types and stuff.
Super.
Yeah.
That's really good. And we're so.
There we go. Okay. So you see Frank has opened up RStudio over here, and just like the screenshot, we have our source.
Is having quite a run with the internet. So we don't want to keep you any longer. We really appreciate for all of you who have come. Starting a club is usually very easy. Maintaining and continuing it is always a challenge. So my hope and the hope of the club and all of us is let's stay together, continue helping each other, and let's see how this goes. So with that, we'll post this video. It will be present on the platform. We'll also share the PowerPoint as well. So thank you, and see you in 2 weeks. We might have intermediate class next week. So if you see the event is updated with an intermediate class and you still want to join, please just come in and we can learn what will be the session about that day. Thank you so much, and we wish you a nice afternoon.